don't lead with your face, right? A topic came up on one of the forums about closing behind your blade, how often this is useful, sort of some of the training mechanics that go into that, and how different people are trained, and how some of the different styles are trained. And so I want to talk a little bit about the way we teach here at our school, and just sort of this basic concept. So if we look at it fundamentally, and in Pikiti, we do a lot of aggressive. We really try to be offensive-minded versus counter-fighters. That's a generality, but in general, you want to be offensive because you are trying to give the other person less options by fixing their defense. So if we look at how that works, and like a day one, first day you're in my class, you're probably gonna get some sort of weapon in your hand. This is just a machete, and we're gonna teach basic striking and basic footwork. So some of the first two things you will probably learn look something like this. Okay, that's a basic fundamental, but it's not the way you fight, okay? Why? If I step and swing, I have just led with my face, right? Obviously, I'm being very mechanical about this, but even if I was moving around and doing all this stuff and I step and I hit, I've just led with my face. The purpose of the fundamental training, that first level of training, is develop a kinetic chain. I step, I turn my hips, I turn my shoulders, I drive with my weapon, and cut. It's also leading with your face. Don't do that, okay? Leading your face, different people will call this different things. Again, if I stepped and hit, Jordan Silver would say that's time of the foot. Don't step and hit. That's a bad idea. So why do we train that? I stepped, I turn, and I hit because I want this motion. This is no different than when I was in karate and we, step forward, turn, here, right? Guess what? When you fight, that's not the application. The fighting application is going to be, okay? Sound effects, boom. Hand move first. As you get better, you compress the timing on there so that your structure is there when the strike lands. You are not doing white belt level, hip first turn, punch, okay? It's the same thing where you're here, bang, here, okay? As you hit, hand is moving first. Your structure will wind up to be the same as you come out of that. This is exactly the same thing that's happening in Pikiti. Again, big level one, level whatever's training, step, turn, hit. Application might be weapons moving, covering me as I start working on the flank, as I start working that motion. I'm covered behind my blade. I'm closing behind my blade as I go there, okay? Weapon starts, and I'm working my flank. That's really important. It could be the backhand as well, right? So again, level one training. It's hard for me sometimes to do it, right? Again, not how you fight. So now I'm moving, I'm fighting, I'm going to isolate this backhand motion here. I'm going to start my angle on my hand, and I'm going to cut. So it might be here as I cut through. So again, I'm closing behind the blade. I want this both offensively and more importantly defensively, that I have something in front of me as I work to close. And I'm typically closing on the angle. There's no reason that we couldn't do this linearly as well. We try to attack on the angles when we're really trying to close. Again, attack behind your weapon. this is more obvious in both shorter weapons and weapons without handguards, okay, where we're using more of the blade. If I was to use a basket hilt, for example, okay, this would be all predicated about being behind my blade as I come in. I can't really do that on a weapon with little or no handguard. Again, this one happens to have a D-guard. I still don't really want to rely on it quite the same way, but this is predicated on either a stick or a guardless weapon, so my weapon is out of the way. But when I close, my blade is my protection here. Okay, doing exactly the same function as a basket hilt does when it attacks that way. Again, same idea. Attack behind your blade. This only really applies to initial closing motions. So it's closed behind your blade. If you're in close, you've trapped the weapon, it doesn't matter, for that kinetic chain. Because you can do that all the power, you've isolated that, you don't need to be non-telegraphic. In the early going, if I go, I deserve to be hit in the face, or the body, or wherever, right? This, I have no defense. I've got a hole. So, bad idea. Apparently there are systems out there that teach it that way. That's fine. And someone will say, well, you really need the impact for the impact weapon. You can have a really heavy stick and still, boom, be able to generate that power from a relatively short range. This doesn't mean you can't swing. Okay, this is I chose this because it's a fairly weighty machete, unreasonably weighty, I should add, as we go into it. So, if I'm going to close, the weight of the machete doesn't preclude me from closing behind the blade. Weight's almost immaterial as long as I get my timing right on that close. Boom, right? Boom. Hand moves first. I close behind my blade as I'm moving in. Whatever that might be, I'm closing behind the weapon. What happens when you change categories? Okay? So, move to a smaller weapon, less defensive property. This is still a really big knife, okay? But it's still relatively hard to block. And so a lot of the countering that you will be doing is against the other person's weapon or the other person. Nothing changes. I first learned Bowie work from Master Arms James Keating. It's all fencing based, okay? And fencing, all about time of the hand, right? Thrust. Bang, right? All of there's no difference in this motion as I go through. I'm always covering behind my blade. Mostly because these are so fast that if you lead with your face, you're never going to land. If I go, you're not going to land that, not against someone good. And we're assuming competent opponents. Can you land on someone who isn't skilled? Sure. We're not going to choose that as our adversary. We want to challenge ourselves against skilled people. So again, don't lead with your face. Here, right? Even if I close, and I will do that, I'm doing this. I'm providing a threat and a focus, and maybe I pick something off my initial closing motion so that I can re-engage. But I'm not doing big strokes like that. I would never teach someone to punch like, boom. Wow, look at all the power I generate as I close. I deserve to be hit in the face. I should never land this against somebody good, right? We're assuming skill here, okay? Again, yes, lots of people, untrained, punch badly. That's not something to strive for, right? We want, bang, however we're going to do this, close behind your weapons, whatever those are going to be. Don't lead with your face. That's all this is about. Close behind your weapon.